السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعين به ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فهو المهتد ومن يضلل فلن تجد له وليا مرشدا. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله بلغ رسالته وأدى الأمانة. أما بعد, جزاكم الله خير, my dear brothers and sisters. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless all of you. Inshallah, we're going to be jumping into the subject, which is, I think, today we're going to be talking about another episode of the barriers of the future generation. And today, one of the things I want to tackle is the problem that many of the youth are facing, is the fact that many of them, their 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 level of knowledge is all over the place, and which sometimes cause them to be anxious, disorganized, and sometimes not able to have a concrete knowledge that enables them to respond to all the misconceptions that are out there. And unfortunately, and this is some youth who, this applies to some of the youth who read, but there are a lot of youth, sometimes or most of the time, they feel lazy. They are, they're totally disorganized, and unfortunately, it becomes their world is the world of imagination and the world of games and the world of following their own desires. But today, bi'idhnillah ta'ala, we're going to be talking about the problems that why are the youth, they don't have a concrete knowledge. And it comes down to the fact that they, and we touched on the subject before, is just because of the fact that they don't have, a way to obtain knowledge in the curriculum style. The curriculum style. And what happened is, for most of them, if they want to read, they read things that are pathetic, that is useless, that is random all over the place. And what happened when someone follow this level or this methodology, you see them, you see them as people who does not have any substance, as people who is, even though they read and they might claim to be sophisticated or knowledgeable in certain areas, but yet when they are faced or when they are put in any sort of argument, when they are put in any sort of debate that would examine their level of knowledge, they would lose with no resistance whatsoever. So the problem here is, at the end of the day, is the question is, how can we read? How could we obtain what we read? How could we enable ourselves to have concrete level of knowledge? And that's the issue here, brothers and sisters. Because if I want to read, I want to be, whatever I read, I want to be able to retain it. If I want to read, I want to know how can I read and what kind of books that I need to read. So in order for us to be at least be able to have knowledge that enable us to go to the outside world, and this would become our weapon of defending ourselves and defending our deen and defending your mind from all the misconceptions out there, then there has to be a method in which that we have to follow in order for us to be strong. Okay, so we're going to be going through different steps that would enable us to be able to know how can I read as a Muslim, and what do I need to read as a Muslim. So the very first question here, brothers and sisters, is what and how. So what to read? The very first thing, brothers and sisters, is that you have to divide the levels of importance. The levels of importance. The very first level is have to be books that are what we call the core books. The core books, meaning that books that you cannot live without. You must have. And these are the books that we build your foundation on. For instance, what are some of the books that we must have in order for us to build our foundation on? The very first thing is the Quran, and making sure that you are not just reading the Quran. I mean, obviously, some of you maybe they're just trying to read the Quran, Here we're not talking about just reading, is understanding the meaning and understanding يعني the different the different reading of the Quran, in order for us to understand why this ayah was revealed, in what occasion, in what context. These are not just wallahi, this peripheral thing. These are must things that each and every Muslim must know, and this is what we call the core foundation, in order for someone to know what to read in the beginning. And part of that also is you have to understand your aqidah. Aqidah is what the foundation of the deen. And we kind of, here in our channel, we talked about basic foundation of aqidah. For instance, we talked about what is la ilaha illallah means, what are the angels, and etc. All these are aqidah questions that talks about the foundation of our deen. Yeah, and there is more. Yeah, there are books that talks about this, basic books, like for instance Al-Aqidah Al-Tahawiyya. These are aqidah books that have taken these questions and explains them in details, so anybody will be able to comprehend them. Okay, so aqidah books, Quran books, hadith, the science of the hadith, and here talk about basic things to understand that are, what are the hadith, what are the levels of authenticity of the hadith, how the hadith came to us. These are must for each and every Muslim that must know. So this is the what we call foundation books. Foundation books. Once you elevate yourself from that level, is what we call now the level of building. Now, after we have found the foundation, is now you build yourself. Now you're trying to be a little bit more specialized. And with this, brothers and sisters, there has to be certain books that you must have also. Here, when we say building yourself, doesn't mean that they're not essential. No. Some of these books that I'm going to mention now are also considered to be part of the foundation. And sometimes they can be foundation and the part of the building books. So, for instance, what are some of the books that we're talking about here? Books that are related to knowledge of hadith. Books that are related to usul al-fiqh. For instance, Risala by Imam al-Shafi'i. Books like that talks about the purpose of Sharia. Why? How could we call the maqasid al-Sharia? Is like, how do I know what's the intent of the Sharia? The different rulings in regarding it. How to obtain, and where in the Sharia, and what are the masalih, the things that are benefits, and what are the mafasid, and etc. Talking about the seerah. Again, for instance, there is Sirah Ibn Hisham. This is one of the greatest seerah books. Talks about the biography of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the life of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Also on Nahu, talking about, for instance, the basic grammar of the Arabic. What is how do we break down a sentence, the different types of sentence, how to make i'rab. These are important, brother. These almost can be part of the foundation books. And also ulum al-Quran, the science of the Quran. Like for instance the Kitab al-Burhan. So these are, brothers and sisters, these things and by the way, many of these books, you could find translation of them in English. So the point here, brothers and sisters, you have to be able to, and after you found your foundation books, you have to build and build your knowledge base. And many of you, mashallah, they're young. And when I talk about these books, some of you think you're overwhelmed. By the way, all these books you could finish in 1 year if you are intended to seek knowledge. All these books can be finished within a year if you really intended to seek knowledge. And on top of that, brothers and sisters, you have to understand the following. That these books, even though they're considered to be essential, you should not stop there. Sometimes some people they want to specialize a little bit more, or like for instance, they want to know, they want to know about other things, but not as much as the foundation and the books that you use to build your knowledge. Like for instance, I want to know more about Islamic financing. This is also considered to be a specialized book. If I want to know more about An-Nasikh wal Mansukh, this is like a part of the sciences of the Quran. that talks about which verse replace what other verse, because we believe some verses will replace by other verses, and etc. So there are sometimes you would have to, beyond the foundation and the building blocks books, is you have to first is you want to be able to know small about peripheral things that would complete your levels of knowledge, and yeah, and subhanallah, going into, for instance, books of fiqh, extensive books of fiqh, that also can be definitely a plus. Now, if I want to, while I'm reading these books, how do I read them? How do I read them? And that's another thing, brother and sister, that many people tend to underlook. This is some of the common complaints that people say. Wallahi, I read this books and I have read that book, but wallahi, I have not retained anything from them. like yeah, when maybe after 1 week or after 1 month after then reading that book, you said, what have you learned from that book? They tell you nothing. Brothers and sisters, when we are trying to read, there is ways that we must be able to utilize in order for us to retain these kinds of books. Okay, again, like we said, and the same thing applies to core foundational books, books of building blocks, and specialized books. Okay, so the very first thing is that you have to write. You have to write. Where do I write? Where do I write in the book? Okay, so the people who are yani knowledgeable about summarizing, they said there is three different types of writing. The very first thing is writing in a book itself. Like, for instance, if you have liberty to write on the book and highlight and write on the empty aspect of the book, then go ahead and do that. Because again, you don't have to go somewhere else. Okay, and that's the easiest way to summarize and focus on the details that you do not know about. So again, the very first thing is what you do is writing on the book itself. Okay, that's number one. A second way of summarizing the book is possibly you could bring a book that have different binders into it, that you could summarize several books within that one book. Like, for instance, yeah, that book would include يعني, important information that you gained regarding the Quran, important information that you gained regarding fiqh, important information of the Quran regarding for instance, Sharia or Aqidah within the same book. Okay, that's one book that you go back to, that you would summarize everything within. Sometimes some other, and this is the third type. The third type is that you specialize a book for each and every section. You specialize a book in each and every section. In which that you would say, for instance, that one book for the Quran. Yeah, for instance, every time I read the Quran, this book is for tafsir. This book is for tafsir. I wanted to write down things that I want to pinpoint. I want to remember. Okay, and afterward, after you like, for instance, you finish a section or a chapter, you go back and look into the parts that you have summarized, the points that you want to focus on. So what happened when you do this, what's going to happen? You will find yourself, you know almost rereading, not everything, but the most important aspects that you have pinpointed to yourself that are important. And sometimes, brothers and sisters, some people, like, for instance, when we talk about, like, for instance, core books or foundational books, you might have to reread. And as they say in Arabic, التكرار يعلم الشطار. Repeating things again and again, it makes you smarter. It makes you smarter, and it makes you more intelligent. And the thing is, and the more you even, because thing is, sometimes people can be overwhelmed when they say reread a book. No, when you reread, it's not like the first time you read it. Now you're just possibly skimming, or possibly, yes, I know this. Oh, I remember this point. I need to remember again. It's very important. So you almost like you're not gonna spending the same amount of time to reread each and every letter and word and sentence. No, you're focusing on the parts that possibly have forgotten, and you're filling the gaps. You're filling the gaps of what you have missed, or possibly what you have forgotten. So, in the key here, brothers and sisters, or that make you or enable you not to forget a book and to retain the most important aspect is reviewing it again, reviewing it again and again. Sometimes people have to review it, يعني subhanallah, even with the come to the Quran, who is the most memorized books worldwide. We still have to reread it. In order for you not to forget it, and in order for you not, to retain most of it, all of it. So it takes a lot of repetition and summarization, and sometimes you would have to use your own ways of knowing the tricks of your brain. Like for instance, attaching one point, by using possibly mnemonics. And if people who do not know what mnemonics are, you look it up and see how would you be able to utilize that in order for you to memorize certain things. So again, it's the key here is one number one is that you read slowly and carefully. You summarize whatever you have read, and third, you reread whenever you are able to. Now, so what are some of the tricks that you could utilize before you read or while you're reading? Make sure that you have, like for instance, a map. You could draw a map of the book. They call it a map of the book. Like for instance, you look at at the beginning of the and or the end of the book, where the glossary are. You would say, well, by the way, this book's it's made out of several chapters, and each chapter is made out of these different units. And you would not, and now with even with your mind, you could be able to write the map of the book, draw the map of the book. Okay, this book is made out of five chapters, and each chapter is made out of these chapter one is made out of 3 units. Oh, and when I read these 3 units, it makes it clear that this what this chapter is all about. So again, with this, you'll be able to even retain the whole book and even memorize it in a short way. Not in details, but the main focus of the book. Okay, so that's one thing that you could utilize. Also, always um, don't be all over the place. Once you start the book, finish it. Don't start with this book and then read one chapter and jump to another book and read one chapter and jump to a third book and then 2 chapters and then you're all over the place. No, once you start the book, finish it. Once you start the book and finish it. So um, another thing, be careful of the importance of time. Many of us brothers and sisters we tend to belittle how time can take over us. And subhanallah, believe it or not, wallahi, and take it from me, if someone would replace the amount that they would invest in TV or social media to read a book, wallahi, they would maybe be able to read one book each and every week. Wallahi, they'd be able to read one book each and every week if they have replaced the amount of TV and wasteful time and games, into reading books. Okay. Also, remember, brothers and sisters, you always have to renew your intention. Once you renew your intention, that makes it gives you energy to go forward with your mission. Also, from time to time, try to fill up the gaps that you have. Well, I think I know this idea very well, but I'm missing this. I know this idea very well, but I'm missing that, and etc. And wallahi, brothers and sisters, you will see a reflection of what you have read into your personality, into your attitude, on the way you deal with others, in the way you look at the world, and how even people would perceive you. They will not perceive you as somebody who is useless. They're not going to perceive you as someone who is a child. No, they would respect you and they would honor you because you're being honored based on who you are and what you know. You know. So again, and another common advice is يعني be focus on things that are important to the Muslims. And here we're not against someone reading from time to time things that are maybe novels. We're not against that. But for instance, when someone, for instance, read 20 novels and then read one book about Islam, this is here the pyramid is upside down. The, on top of the pyramids are maybe things that are possibly for fun, reading for fun. This is the top of the building, the top of the pyramid, and that's what we call them: novels, stories, that sort of thing. The top of the pyramid. But when someone is all his time, all his reading is all this, useless amount of books, and then you the other way around, you are reading once in a while, you read the Quran once in a while, or reading the fiqh once in a while. That does not work whatsoever. So with that, brothers and sisters, alhamdulillah rabbil alameen, we have talked about reading, what to read, the priorities of reading, and how to read. And I hope this is beneficial to all of you. Jazakum Allah khair. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.